You're watching the number one podcast in the YouTube wrestling community. You already know who I am, your host, Jean Paul Leek. And this is Rope Break. Guys, here we are again, Thursday morning. You know what that means, AEW Dynamite review. We're kicking it old school like we used to do it the Thursday mornings with Jean Paul Leek. So go home show for Full Gear. Pretty good, I must say. This, normally with Dynamite, especially these Wednesday shows, because I want them both to be really good, I'm a little bit more I look over things with a fine-tooth comb. I'm a little bit harder on these shows because I want them to be good. This is the wrestling that we're supposed to enjoy, and last night's episode was one that I will say I did enjoy. There wasn't really much to go after. I actually did enjoy it more than NXT. So for everybody who wants to say I'm a hater, I do like NXT, or I did like AEW a little more. But speaking of NXT, go check out that review. We have all the fallout from Halloween Havoc, if you want to call any fallout, I guess a little bit. But new storylines. But we said the main thing is, where are the heavy hitters? Where are the main event guys? They're all missing, and the show's definitely hurting from it. And we also have a bunch of soccer videos came out over the weekend. Check them out. And of course, the Monday Night Raw review with yours truly. But let's get started here on Dynamite Go Home show for AEW Full Gear. I'm excited about the pay-per-view. I always say I'm excited for the AEW pay-per-views. They always look good, even though sometimes the weeks getting us there can be a little rough. But the pay-per-view looks good. Go-home show was good. So, let's keep this positivity rolling. But the show opens up. Dasha, she's interviewing, Le Champion, Chris Jericho. He's there with Santana and Jake Hager. And before she can really ask him anything, he takes the mic and he said, hey, I want to congratulate Jake Hager for his win. He's 3-0 in Bellator. He's a badass, everything. And he's just, putting him over. But then MJF shows up, and MJF, he says that he feels like, they didn't hit it off last week, but tonight he wants to prove that he belongs in the inner circle. And Jericho says that he doesn't think MJF has the thing that he, Hager, and Santana have, and that's the killer instinct. And then he says MJF is soft, and MJF is like, oh, really? And they kind of just have this stare down this little bit, and it was a good way to kick off the show. I like when they kind of have these little, maybe like a minute, 30-second little interview things instead of just jumping right into a match and being like, oh, the action starts right away. It gives you a little bit of time to ease into the show. Like, okay, so that was cool. But then, soon after, we did get the first match, which was MJF and Wardlow versus Sammy Guevara and Ortiz. And this was pretty good opening match. I always put AEW over for the most part. I think 99% of their shows, the opening match is always really good. And this was no exception. This was a good match. MJF looked good in this. It was good to see him again in like a wrestling role where he looks legit. He looks strong. He plays his heel character very well. He wrestles like a heel. And Wardlow looks good. Wardlow does a lot of stuff like, some of the dives and the bumps he takes, and, getting clotheslined over the top and stuff like that. I'll say the same thing about Wardlow, and I'll say it for Miro too. These guys shouldn't be taking these bumps for the guys who are half their size. I know it's wrestling and you got to suspend belief here a little bit, but it's also like you got to portray these guys, how they look and how they're built. But Sammy Guevara was the star of this match to me. He's really good. And this, hopefully after Full Gear, I wouldn't mind if he leaves the inner circle, maybe turns babyface, maybe does something with that, because in this feud with MJF, you'd almost say that he's the babyface in this little like mini kind of dispute they're having. But then in the feud he's having with Matt Hardy's clearly the babyface and he's the heel. So that's the one thing I really don't like, and it kind of leaves a bad taste. But, to go back to this match, though, was really good. And I said Sammy Guevara, to me, stole the show in this thing. He was the star. And, Ortiz isn't bad, but Santana and Ortiz, that's the combo. That's the group you need. I don't want to see Ortiz and Guevara. I don't want to see, Santana and Guevara, Santana and Jericho or something like that. No, Santana and Ortiz need to be the group. But I don't think that this was a long-term thing. This was just because, they wanted this match before the pay-per-view. But this was good, though. And, at the end of this thing, when he has MJF knocked out on the outside, and then he sees some fan, and then, he just flips off the fan, like, screw you, and he's wearing the Serpentico mask. And the commentary's like, I think that's Serpentico. And Jericho's like, no, that isn't, blah, blah, blah. He's like, I forget what exactly he said, because Jericho was on commentary pretty much the whole night. And well, actually, he was on commentary the whole night. But the fan who MJF flipped off was actually Matt Hardy. So he throws the chair at Guevara, boom, that knocks him out. And then that leaves Ortiz. He gets hit with the what do they call? Not the F10, or I forget what they call his signature. Whatever, where he does like the F5. But he hits that, and then Wardlow hits the Salt of the Earth. Oh, yeah, they do call it the F10. That's right. That came back to me. So he hit the F10, and then he hit the Salt of the Earth. So MJF and Wardlow win this thing. So that was pretty good. Like I said, a really good opening match. Guevara, to me, was a star. And then afterwards, Jericho's on commentary, but MJF and Wardlow, they make their way up there, and he pretty much tackles Jericho into the barricade or the backdrop. Not barricade, but the backdrop they have behind the commentary set. And then, Hager pulls him off, and then Hager and Wardlow have a stare down. So that was really good. I like the stare down between the two big men. But the thing I don't understand is, it should have been MJF was like, yeah, I beat your boys. I'm going to beat you on Saturday, and then you'll earn my respect, and then I'll be in the inner circle. Or I'll earn your respect, and then I'll be in the inner circle. You just tackle the guy through the backdrop, and then you're like, oh, let me be in your group. To me, that's like, that doesn't make sense. It's like ass backwards. But, AEW. So, but let's move on. So then we see Tony Schiavone. He's with Kenny Omega, and he's interviewing him in his home. But then Kenny Omega says it's not his home. So that was really weird. It was awkward. He's like, oh, I moved to Jacksonville to focus on my, on this tournament. It's like, well, then why did you even have to mention it was the home? It just started off the interview just kind of like awkward. But then, he said he moved to Jacksonville so he could focus on, Full Gear in the match with Hangman. And then he talks about how wins and losses really matter here. And it's like, is this tongue in cheek? Is this a joke? Am I supposed to laugh because of a promo Taz cut later completely counter-argued everything Kenny just said here about the wins and losses? And he said he could have asked for a bye because, he's like, what do you do in football when or a team or any sport where a team forfeits? They don't plug another team in there. You get the win. And he's like, pretty much both my matches, the guys had to forfeit and they plugged in substitutes. So I should have been put in the finals without wrestling. But I wrestled, I proved myself. And he said that he's surprised that Paige made it to the finals. He thought it was going to be Wardlow. Everybody said that it was him and Paige. It was predictable. He's like, oh, I don't really think so. I was pulling for Wardlow. And, he said that this is pretty much, the finals that everybody wanted to see. And he's like, I'm sure that I am a favorite, though, despite what anybody thinks because of my pedigree. So then we go to a commercial break. Pretty good. The interview ended good where he's like, oh, my pedigree, a little cocky. But just Kenny on the mic is just something a little awkward, something I don't know. I don't know what it is. It just doesn't do it for me. Then we get Miro with Kip Sabian and Penelope Ford versus Trent with Orange Cassidy and Chuck Taylor. And this was good because of the little bit of backstory they had, which in their backstory, they had to mention WWE or FCW because before it was NXT. And now he said, oh, like Trent, when he was there, was actually the one who was kind of training Rusev or, Miro. And he was like, oh, yeah, you were this is Trent talking, said to Miro, oh, you were my young boy. I showed you around, you were carrying my bags, driving me from place to place in FCW. So, it was funny that they showed that clip and they mentioned FCW because clearly that's a WWE owned thing. So, they like to put WWE down, but then they mentioned that. So, it's just the little things. But this match, because of the story, I guess I'll excuse it a little. I'm not making excuses, but I understand why it went a little long. They're not going to have him squash the guy because they're trying to tell a story here in a feud. And obviously the best friends are feuding with Miro and Sabian over the arcade cabinet. Stupid bullshit thing. And what was the feud beforehand? Oh, because of our mom's minivan and all that other shit. So stupid feuds the best friends get in. Like somebody said, the best friends are literally supposed to be like actual children. Like, 10-year-old children, like they hug and they oh, like my mom, and like the mom drives them everywhere in the minivan. It's supposed to be like a, parody of being actual children, I feel. But, the match was good. Of course, it had to start out where Miro insults his mom and everything. So then Trent gets the upper hand to start it all out. And it went a little long. Miro was taking a bunch of, everything over the top rope. Like I said about Wardlow, he doesn't need to be taking that, especially in his first match where we thought he tore his Achilles or blew out his knee or, did something. We're like, oh my God, this guy makes his debut and he's done. Don't be taking those bumps. I say the same thing with Ember Moon. Just wrestle on the mat, be legit. But this was good. Of course. Oh, it was all right. It was pretty good, I guess. If I'm like I said, let's keep the positivity going. It's pretty good. But Penelope Ford, she came in and with Orange Cassidy, she smacked the glasses off his face. He took her glasses. You had to get the whole gang involved, I guess. But Trent kept trying to fight back, but Miro was overpowering him. He hits the tornado DDT, and then he goes for a knee, but Miro, he catches him. He hits a slam, the Mach kick, and then or Miro kick, whatever you want to call it, camel clutch, or the game over, whatever he's calling his shit now, and he wins. So pretty good match. Miro looks strong, went a little bit long. He doesn't need to be taking all those bumps. And then he applies the camel clutch after the bell, but then Chuck comes out, beats him down. Kip takes him out, and then they keep beating each other down. And then Orange Cassidy jumps off the top, takes out the two heels. And then afterwards, Kip is holding Miro back because he wants to rip Orange Cassidy's head off. I don't know why he didn't let him. So then we see a sit-down interview with Hangman Page and Jim Ross. And Jim Ross asks him about the match that he has with Omega. Page is clearly drunk, he's feeling good. And he's like, oh, yeah, I had some time to prepare. I knew this would be the final. And he's like, I know all of Omega's moves. I can counter them all. Yeah, I'll be fine. He's no-selling it. And then JR is like, I think you're nervous. And I think you're drinking and you're hiding it. He's like, and I know that's not your first drink today. So then Page kind of gets like, oh, so. And then he's like, he admits that, he is nervous. And he's not afraid to admit that. Because nobody believed that he would be AEW champion when he, was the first one to challenge for it. And he's like, you know what? Nobody believed in me, and I guess they were right. And he's like, if I don't win on Saturday, I don't know what the hell I have left besides this drink. So that was it. So you clearly see they're playing up the angle that this guy's lost. He, not just in wrestling, but his personal life and everything. They're really playing up this angle where, and I hope now we kind of like see the less drunk and just the more like, you got to start building this guy up. Clearly he's at rock bottom. You're portraying him there. Now it's time to start building him up. He doesn't need to remain at rock bottom any longer. And then we get a promo with Taz. He comes out. And, this was like unplanned, but, whatever. So he comes out with Brian Cage, Ricky Starks. Taz says that for 3 hours. He stood outside Tony Khan's office trying to get a 2-minute conversation with him, only for some guy to be like, oh, TK is busy. And he's like, oh, Taz says that Tony has forced his hand, so he's out here. And he says that AEW has a ranking system that he believes in, but both of his guys are 10-1, and Brian Cage is ranked number 1. And Ricky Starks isn't even ranked at all. So what does that say? These wins and losses and all that, it's bullshit. The ranking system doesn't mean shit because they have the same record, but Cage is number 1 and Ricky Starks isn't even on the list. So what does that tell you? Then Stark grabs the mic and he says that he's opened Dynamite and he's closed it. He's been in the opening match. He's been in the main event. And he's proven why they call him Absolute. And he said, which is why he can't understand why he's not ranked. He asked, what does he have to do to get a match of Full Gear? And Taz says that he doesn't know. Taz says that Cody and Darby Allin are similar, that they got handed their opportunities. And Taz takes aim at Cody. And he says that, do the work. And he says, well, his boys have done the work and now they're getting worked. And he guarantees that they will have a presence at Full Gear. So good promo by Taz. Ricky Starks, same thing. Brian Cage, I guess he looks good. The fucker can't talk at all. Like Ricky Starks sounds more intimidating and a way better promo than Brian Cage, but maybe that's what happens when you get beat by Tessa Blanchard. So when we get Private Party, they come out alongside with Matt Hardy. On their way to the ring, Matt Hardy gets attacked by Guevara. He gets revenge for the opening match, and then he hits a twist of fate to Matt, and then he gets out of there. So Hardy's laid out, just adding to the fuel to the fire or whatever, from the opening match to kind of excite for the ultimate deletion or whatever they call, or the AEW deletion or full deletion, whatever deletion bullshit they're calling this match. So then we get Private Party versus the Young Bucks. And this was good. These two teams have chemistry. They can wrestle each other. It's not like an awkward match, like FTR versus some of these high-flying, spot teams. It's not a good match. But, these guys, they have similar styles and everything. They gel really well. Private Party is a good up-and-coming team. I really like them, especially Quen. But, how is this going to end? Would the Private Party going to upset them and they lose all the momentum? What did they say? They put their title opportunity, future title opportunities on the line on Saturday. If they lose, they're never going to challenge for the belts again. So spoiler alert, if they lose, they're creating light heavyweight tag team titles, and they're going to be like Cody and hold them forever. So if they lose, get ready for light heavyweight tag team titles like New Japan. But if they win, which is they're probably going to win, then, all is good, in Cacho, whatever, wherever they're from. I can't even like the beach, that they're from, whatever they say, Cachamunga, catch a bullshit episode of Dynamite, but whatever it is, all will be good in their home. But this was good. They at the end of the thing, Nick hits a super kick to Quen. He tags in. They hit the BTE, for the 1, 2, 3. So after the thing, the Bucks celebrate. The Matt Jackson, everything with his leg. It was kind of selling that, but of course it's Matt Jackson, so he really doesn't sell anything. So they're good after the match, but then out come FTR. They attack from behind. They hit the Midnight Express to Matt, and then they're stomping his ankle against him more with the chair. But Hangman Page and Kenny Omega come out, make the save. They chase off the heels. That I like, because then you kind of see Kenny's obviously aligned with the Bucks. Hangman's trying to redeem himself and everything, and they kind of look like, okay, yeah, we're cool, but you can tell it's like we're not cool. I'm hoping that the three of them beat Hangman up after Kenny wins the match at the pay-per-view, but we'll see what they do with that. So then we get Tony Schiavone. He's in the ring. He introduces Eddie Kingston and then Jon Moxley, and they're having a face-to-face, and Tony Khan said if they have any type of like physical interaction, beating each other up, anything like that, then the match will be called off for Saturday. So Kingston, he gets nose to nose pushed against Moxley, tempting him to throw the first punch. So, so it's Moxley's fault, or like Moxley loses the match, or whatever the stipulation. And, he's getting in his face. And then he says that he's going to batter him, and he's going to take the title home to his mom and explain why she doesn't have a daughter-in-law or grandchildren. And it's because that he sacrificed 18 years of his life for this, to be a world champion. And, that's why he couldn't give her what she wanted. But, he had to follow his dream, and he wants to prove to her that it was all worth it. Moxley takes the microphone. He's like, you have to be careful who you call your friends. He's like, I'd rather have 4 quarters than 100 pennies. So I'd rather have 4 friends than 100 friends. He says that loyalty is a bitch, but he never thought that he would get burned by Eddie. And he says that he was so happy for him when he got signed to AEW. Kingston says, bullshit. Moxley says, no, I was happy. I was happy for you, happy for your mother, who you made a promise that you would always, or he's like, I made a promise to your mother. I would always have your back. I would always look out for you any way I could. And he's like, well, I broke. And then, he's like, well, he broke that promise. And then Moxley says that the loudest man in the room is the weakest, and Eddie is really loud lately. He said, I don't know why you're acting so weak. What's going on? He said, it's been 18 years, and, this is your chance to be the, world champ. And he said, it's against the best wrestler on the planet. Kingston knows he's going to lose, and he'll realize it's been 18 years for nothing. And the thing that makes his stomach churn is that Kingston made a promise to his mother, a promise he can't keep. So that pisses off Kingston. He's like, you're going to have to kill me on Saturday. Really good, just like intensity from both these guys in this promo. If you can find it on YouTube, find it somewhere, look it up. Really good intensity. I think this is a hell of a lot better than the Jey Uso Roman Reigns shit. I know Juan's really not too high on this, match in this feud, which I can understand that. But, this promo was really good, and it really did seem real, especially compared to what we're seeing on Friday nights. So, no complaints there. So then we see a video package. And speaking of comparing things to other wrestling shows, we see a video package of Pac. The bastard. Where has he been for how many months? We see him. He's sitting in a room alone. And he's like, I've been gone for 7 months. And he's like, that isolation, it does a lot to somebody. But this isn't the first time that, I've been isolated away from 7 months. You remember when he left WWE? That's exactly what he did. He just sat at home, waited out his contract, waited out the no-compete clause, all that other, happy horse shit until he could finally wrestle. And, but I'm comparing it to another wrestling show is, Impact, TNA, whatever you want to call it. I call him TNA, but Impact, with Eric Young. You got Eric Young was sitting there in the insane asylum. Or in the jail cell. You have Pac, he's sitting there in his living room. But you have all these multiple versions of himself start appearing, and they're all different emotions. Some of them are angry, some of them are laughing, some of them are happy, some are sad. All these different emotions. So obviously it's portraying all his emotions that he feels. So it's very similar vibes, I thought, to the Eric Young promo that they did for Bound for Glory. But, hey, if you're going to copy something, at least copy something good. And that's what they did. So this was really good. And he says that but this isolation this time has made him faster, stronger, and better, and way more obsessed. So we're going to see he returns hopefully after full gear. That would be a good defense for, maybe John Moxley. And then after that, you can do Kenny Omega. I don't want to say you have Pac return and job him out to Moxley, but, you could maybe do something where somebody, I don't know, you could do something because there's going to have to be a feud. I don't think they're going to do Kenny Omega versus Moxley just on a show. I feel like they're going to save that for a pay-per-view. So you're going to have a feud or two for Moxley, or in the off chance Kingston, until we get that match with Omega, or in the off chance Hangman Page. But, if all things go how they should, it'll be Moxley and Omega. But then after the commercial break, we get Dustin Rhodes and QT Marshall. They're going to have an interview, but then the bunny shows up, and she's like, thanks QT for everything that, he's bought her with his credit cards, but they're maxed out. So she throws them in his face, and then before they can say anything, the Butcher and the Blade, they lay him out. I believe they had kendo sticks, so they tag Dustin and QT. So we're going to see that match next week. And another match they also announced for next week is the Lucha Bros, going at each other, part 2. I don't know why, so they can drop Phoenix on his head again. Who knows? But then we see Nyla Rose and Vicky Guerrero, or with Vicky Guerrero, and they're going against, or she is going against Red Velvet. And of course, Red Velvet had to have someone, the queen of the spotlight, Brandy Rhodes. So this match was really quick. I don't know what you thought this was going to be. Rose, she hits Red Velvet with the Beast Bomb, but then she does the whole knee thing like Hikaru Shida does. She pins her 1, 2, 3. And then that's pretty much it. She just kicked the shit out of her. She looked at Shida, was like, yeah, I'm coming back. I'm taking my belt back. I mean, you're trying to build this feud up in 2 weeks, or rebuild this feud that was months ago in 2 weeks, because Tony Khan doesn't care about the women's division. So I don't know how I'm supposed to care about this matchup either. We got a match announced of Serena Deeb versus Allison Kay for the NWA women's title. Way more excited about that match, and that match will be way better than this one. No offense to Hikaru Shida or, anyone else involved, but, hey, got to call it like I see it. But then after the match, Vicky Guerrero gets on the microphone, and she says that Velvet came out here with Brandy Rhodes, but she still can't win. So what the hell's the point of Brandy Rhodes being out here? And she's like, oh, you're the CBO, Chief Bullshit Officer. And then Vicky walks around, and she says that Shida says Tony Khan was finally started to listen to her, and that's why Nyla Rose has a match against Hikaru Shida on Saturday. And she says that Nyla Rose will break Shida's bones and take her title, and then she mocks her, and Shida attacks Vicky, but Nyla intervenes until a referee pulls them apart. So pretty good. I like hearing Vicky on the mic. This is what should have been when she first teamed up with Nyla Rose. It's like you put them together, and then poof, they were gone for months. So I don't know what the hell that was about. So then this is just awkward to see them again. And, don't say watch AEW Dark, because that would be like, hey, you got to watch Main Event to know the storylines on Monday Night Raw. No. That's not how this works. So we get a lengthy video package chronicling everything with Hangman Page, Kenny Omega, their rivalry, them teaming up, everything. And, it was really good that, you saw little interview clips, JR, everybody in there. And then they played the song, you don't know what you got till it's gone. Good stuff there. And then we see a Darby Allin video package. He's in a car. It says the face of TNT on it. There's some guy, probably Steve-O, some jackass guy, from the show. Not that he is a jackass. Well, I mean, he might be. But anyway, he has a paper mask on of Cody with a big cigar. Darby Allin drives his car into him. He, of course, stuntman flips over the car and whatever. So it's supposed to be he's taking out Cody, and he's going to be the new face of TNT. So then we get the main event. Here it is, the Cody and the Gun Club, Billy Gunn and Austin Gunn versus the Dark Order, which it was John Silver, Colt Cabana, and 10. I forget what number 10's name is, but, he's not bad. He's pretty good. And this main event is, I'll say the same thing. It wasn't bad. It was pretty good. I was scared that it was just going to be the Cody show in this match where, let's say, Billy and Austin, they look all right, but they, at the end, they make the hot tag to Cody, and Cody comes in and saves the day. It was kind of like that a little bit, but not really. Cody looked all right in here, but his main thing was after the match. This match, Billy looked good. Juan's a big Billy Gunn fan. I like Billy Gunn. You know, the guy is old, a lot older than pretty much everybody on that roster. Him and Dustin are like the two oldest guys that are actively wrestling, but you know, him and Dustin look better than half the guys who are wrestling. So what does that tell you? Guess WWE can do a little bit for these guys, but you know, he looked good. Austin looked really good. I'm going to say the same thing about Guevara. I'll say for him, he was the star of this match. He stole it for me. He looked really good. You know, Cody's good, but he didn't get that much offense, which is, you know, that's how it should be. He's having the marquee match at the pay-per-view, you know, for the TNT title. He doesn't need to shine here. He doesn't need to, you know, steal the spotlight. But it was really good. And then the winner, Austin, he hits what is his move? I forget what they call it. The something like a pistol or something kind of like that. Something like, you know, with the whole gun thing. But you know, he got the pin, the 1, 2, 3. So that was really good. And then, you know, he got to celebrate that Cody, you know, his dad, everybody in the ring for his first match. I believe it was his first match on Dynamite and his first, you know, his first win on Dynamite, obviously, as well. So that was really cool for him, you know, especially to share that moment with his dad, just taking it out of the whole wrestling thing, just going in personally. So I think that was really cool. You know, Cole Cabana, 10, John Silver's having a match with Orange Cassidy. So, you know, that's, you know, like that's, you know, his thing. And Cole Cabana, you know, 10, you know, hey, I don't know. Thanks for coming, I guess. But after the match, the whole Dark Order, they surround the ring. And then Silver, he looks to sneak behind him with a chair. But then Orange Cassidy runs up. He knocks him out with the orange punch. Again, kind of building that up for Full Gear. But then Cody grabs the microphone. And he says he doesn't like telling stories that aren't true. I'll leave that how it is. You know, you can think about that what you will. And then he says that his opponent at Full Gear is telling everyone that TNT doesn't want him as the face of the company, that he's too reckless and too controversial. And Cody says that TNT would love having someone as talented as Darby as their champion. And he would too, if the circumstances were different. And he said it was him who got Darby the job in the first place, and everyone else wasn't so sure, and that Cody had to wrestle him, you know, to prove that this guy was worth it. And then Cody says that he's the guy who left the Empire, fought the war, and won. Again, like they got to keep mentioning WWE, but I never really hear WWE mention them. So, you know, is somebody being petty here? I don't know. And then he says that Darby wants a TNT championship and he wants to be the face of the company, but he's not the ace in AEW, and this title is for the ace. So, you know, there you have it. Some tough words from Cody to close out the show. Do you think really Cody's the babyface in this? Or, you know, is this a match of just two baby faces? But Cody seems kind of cocky here. I still think the Cody heel turn's coming. I don't think you're going to do it the same night as like the heel, you know, hopefully the formation of Kenny Omega and the Bucks, kind of going back to like the new Bullet Club, but for AEW. I don't think you're going to do it all in one night, one pay-per-view. They were hyping this pay-per-view up as it's going to be the biggest and the best one that AEW's ever done. So maybe we will see a lot of surprises, a lot of craziness. I know there's, you know, every AEW pay-per-view since he left WWE, there's Sting rumors. So who the hell knows? I mean, this could really be, you know, the most monumental pay-per-view. If they do all this stuff, they go all out, you know, no pun intended, because, you know, it's Full Gear, not all out. But, you know, if they do that and they make this show really good, you know, I'll be happy. This was a solid episode of Dynamite. Not really too much complaints. So, you know, I was more than happy with the 2 hours I spent watching this, but I will be the happiest later today when I get to watch NXT UK. But that's a review for another time. But guys, thank you so much for watching. And of course, make sure you follow us on all the social media, Facebook on Rope Break on Facebook. There we go. Let me get these, you know, correct here. Rope Break on Facebook, the OG Rope Break on Twitter, original Rope Break on Instagram, original Rope Break right here on YouTube, and of course, our newest home, alleverythingentertainment.com. So guys, like I mentioned, we'll see you next time for NXT UK. Have a nice day.